Nintendo just destroyed Yuzu.
All right, so one of the wildest things that's happened over the last week is the eradication of Yuzu, who many may know is the ever-popular Switch emulator that kind of kickstarted the Switch emulation scene as a whole, essentially. And Nintendo just completely went after them, and we're at a point now where the entity who created Yuzu and the team behind it have decided to no longer continue. So this right here is the lawsuit that Nintendo of America issued against Tropic Haze LLC, the organization responsible for Yuzu, and it goes in extreme detail for those who want to check this whole document out. I'll have a link for it in the description below. Now,
yeah, Yong, court documents like that typically go into extreme detail.
Now, for those who want just sort of the Spark Notes version of it, right here we have an article from Games Radar that provided a good summary. Nintendo takes Switch emulator user to court in major lawsuit alleging it fueled 1 million illegal downloads of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom before release. And so this is kind of exactly what Nintendo had to say on that front.
Yeah, obviously. The moment you touch anything that Nintendo has and try to make it free, a mod for it or whatever, yeah, Nintendo's just gonna destroy you. Nintendo does not play around with this. They absolutely do not care. They will sue the oblivion out of you, without question. If you try to emulate their stuff, you're gone. If you try to recreate their stuff, you're gone. They do not play around, okay? Nintendo literally protects their stuff to infinity. Now, as a gamer, I'm obviously kind of saddened about this because, well, you know, as a gamer, I like more options. The more options, the better I think it is for everyone, obviously. But on the other side, I can't exactly be just mad on Nintendo for them doing this because they are just protecting their intellectual properties, their everything. They have the full right to do this. And if you're saying, oh no, multi-million, billion-dollar companies can't do that, congratulations, you're definitely a YongYea. You are communism good, remember that always. Big business bad, employers bad, CEOs mega bad, communism good. Okay? So, yeah, Nintendo has the right to do this. And if you're gonna say, oh, they should not have done this, let me ask you a very simple question that's gonna piss you off because you're an idiot. Do you just allow random people to go into your house and take stuff that you own? No? How could that be? Because, you know, the Yuzu essentially did that to Nintendo here. They just stole their stuff, made a profit off of it, and yeah, Nintendo just didn't allow that to happen. If you think that Nintendo should have not done anything, then I expect you to open your doors to anyone who wants to take from you and just, you know, have fun with that, okay? But you're probably not gonna do that. Surprise. Every communist is an absolute hypocrite.
Nintendo alleges Yuzu did irreparable harm by providing any internet user in the world with the means to unlawfully decrypt and play virtually any Nintendo Switch game, including Nintendo's current generation and most popular games, without ever paying a dime for a Nintendo console or for that game. Now, the decryption aspect of
Now, some of the most brightest bulbs here are gonna say, but this is free promotion for Nintendo, this is a good thing. Is it though? Is it? They're just gonna download one game, not care about it anything at all? I will argue that the value of people buying a Switch and playing the game on a Switch where they're gonna have access to more Nintendo games and more Nintendo products is way better than any kind of fucking Yuzu promotion that they got out of it. Okay? It's not even close.
This emulator apparently plays a key role in this particular case. That's one element where Nintendo is legally driving pretty hard. With Tears of the Kingdom specifically, you may recall that the game actually leaked about a week before its official launch, and in that time, in that week, where the game wasn't officially out. The game saw more than 1 million illegal downloads during that small window, during which time Patreon support for Yuzu reportedly doubled. And you can actually see this is true when you look at Patreon stats for Yuzu. So right here we have a website that keeps track of that stuff. Right here you can see that this is April 2023 when Yuzu, the Patreon page for Yuzu, was making around $18,634 per month. That number more than doubled when Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was leaked online. The earnings per month became $40,085 on May of 2023. And for those who don't know, Yuzu offered early access to builds of their emulator to patrons, and that meant that if you paid Yuzu, if you contributed to their Patreon, you could essentially get the build of Yuzu that could run Tears of the Kingdom early. And
yeah, effectively there's no defense against this, because you are because this is clearly people trying to buy stolen goods, essentially, just in a cyber sense, I guess. But yeah, this is just fencing. This is just pure reselling of stolen property, essentially.
And legally speaking, that could be perceived as the Yuzu team essentially profiting off of early access to play a version of Tears of the Kingdom that was leaked online, downloaded. Nintendo itself argued that thousands of additional paid members of Yuzu's Patreon signed up so that they could download the early access build and play unlawful copies of Tears of the Kingdom. And once you start profiting off of another company's product, that's when, legally speaking, you are kind of in danger. That's when
YongYea is a full-blown moron. If you use anything from another company without their permission, you don't need to profit off of that for it to be completely illegal, potentially, or be flat out completely illegal. YongYea is just a communist LARPer who has absolutely no idea what he's talking about most of the time.
Legally speaking, the entity pursuing you legally likely has a stronger case. And with this situation, it's not a matter of the emulator trying to preserve a game or something. It's the emulator being able to play a build of a game that wasn't officially released yet and might have potentially cost Nintendo money. Like, that's the...
Those two things that he mentioned have absolutely no value also.
Case that's being made. Now, that being said, while Nintendo might have a strong legal case in this particular scenario, what doesn't sit right with me is the way Nintendo's trying to paint emulators as a whole with the following unfavorable definition that reads, a piece of software that allows users to unlawfully play pirated video games that were published only for a specific console on a general purpose computing device. That is a...
I mean, are they wrong? No, they are not wrong. Emulators, that's what emulators are used for.
Potential function of an emulator, but an emulator also allows you to take your own legally purchased copies and play them on another device where you could potentially enhance the experience of that game if you take...
Also, but that doesn't make it right. If I kill a person and then save a person, I am not neutral. I still killed someone. The part that I saved someone is nice, but I'm still guilty of killing someone.
Take a copy of Tears of the Kingdom that you bought, run it through Yuzu, and enhance it with, 60 FPS or 120 FPS, even 4K resolution, and that's your own copy that you decided to kind of modify to enhance the experience. In that use case, Nintendo isn't being harmed. Nintendo's already gotten money from the end user who's decided.
They are missing out on a lot of other things that the fact that they got the money doesn't mean that they're not harmed. There's so much more that goes into this. The whole again, I have spoken about this so many times, but YongYea is too stupid. The whole point why every game company wants to create their own launcher, their own Steam, their own shops and things like that is because there is value in people just having it and being on it. Every second that someone spends on, for example, the Battle.net launcher is 1 second closer to someone potentially buying a product or a skin or whatever from them. So, them buying the game and then playing it on an emulator is still bad because they're not on the platform. They're losing out on potential income that way. But YongYea, again, he's too stupid to understand this.
Decided to enhance that software through emulation, which is within their prerogative. To say that this is the only function of emulators is categorically false. I see emulators...
It doesn't matter if it's the only function of emulators, as long as this is a substantial part of emulators, or in this case, arguably, even if it's just a small part of emulation, they have the right to say this. Ugh.
As tools, and like with any tool, it can be used for ill intent, but it can also be used to enhance.
Great oversimplification, but honestly, that was probably the smartest sentence he has said.
Certain things or make certain things more convenient. And so it depends on how emulators are used. Much like a knife could be used as a utensil to cut steak, or it could be used as a weapon to harm someone. Or much like how, say, Photoshop could be used to, create thumbnails for YouTube videos, or to edit photos, or to, create malicious images that could be posted online and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, a tool is only as malicious as its user, and obviously how...
Completely missing the point.
How easy it is to be malicious with a certain tool warrants regulations that take all of that into consideration. But to label emulators as a whole a piece of software that's strictly intended for piracy is categorically false. If it wasn't for emulators, there are so many games right now that we would not be able to play at all if it wasn't for ROM.
And most of them, no one pays for. I have not even a single time in my life paid for an emulator game, and I will never do so. So here you have proof that people use it for piracy and personal gain.
So many games would have disappeared into the void forever and, would not be preserved like they are now,
Oh, no.
would not be playable in any way, shape, or form. So emulators, I think, do have great function and are quite innovative in the way they function and in what they allow users to do. But yes, it can be used for piracy, which I'm not denying. But when used non-maliciously, emulators are actually really cool pieces of software that can offer all kinds of cool and interesting functions.
Just like NFTs. God, you're so stupid!
Some functionalities which have been adapted into, official game releases, save and load states. That started with emulators, and now games, like official releases of old classics, use that now, you know what I mean? Hell, the Nintendo Switch itself employs emulators to be able to run some of the Nintendo classics, your NES, SNES, N64 games and the like. You can't...
Yeah. He knows that, he understands that, but he still misses the point. Why? Then it's good, but... Oh.
Make this the definition of emulators, Nintendo, when you yourself are using emulators, but in your hands you're using...
But they're not using emulators in this definition, you nitwit. You... Go get a job, YongYea. Please. Please, I beg of you, get a real job. Oh, but he's a voice actor. Shut the fuck up.
Using it in a way that makes sense, that is good, that allows people to officially purchase old games and play them on this portable device and allow people to preserve those games in a more modern piece of hardware. Like, that's a good use of emulator. It's a tool that Nintendo is employing in a way that isn't unlawful or malicious. That is a possibility with emulators. But on the other side of the fence, for the creators of the emulator, once you're doing stuff like charging money for early access for a build of an emulator that allows you to play a game that isn't even out yet and stuff like that, that's where you get into a territory where you allow Nintendo to legally attack, and it encourages them to legally pursue this, as the company does perceive this as a situation that has done tangible damage to their company and the sale of this game that was meant to be very profitable for Nintendo, and it was.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like he is clueless what he's even speaking about here now.
Very profitable for Nintendo, but Nintendo thinks that they could have sold a few 100,000 copies, 1 million copies more, or whatever, had this emulator not paved the way for people to so easily download pirated copies of this game. Now, for Nintendo lawyers, their main point of attack seems to be the decryption methods orbiting Yuzu rather than the emulator itself. This is the area where Nintendo calls the situation like very clearly unlawful. I'm no lawyer, so I wouldn't know how legally sound that argument is. Again, emulators is a gray area, but when it comes to like decryption methods for Nintendo games, maybe that is one area that's a little more clear cut. And the lawsuit also highlights how Yuzu consistently recommends other unlawful devices and software like the ones listed here. And so what does Nintendo ultimately want from all of this? Well, they want equitable relief and damages on the grounds of copyright and DMCA violations, as well as circumvention of technology.
So essentially, they just want them gone. By the way, this is just gaslighting. If they say the damage is 1 million units, that means how much did Zelda cost? 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 bucks? Yeah, Yuzu's probably bankrupt.
Technological measures, or TPMs, and unauthorized reproduction of works. And there's a direct quote from the lawsuit. Defendants, agents such as Bune, admit to dumping Nintendo games they have lawfully purchased and copying the game ROMs into Yuzu. And then, of course, Nintendo wants the emulator taken down as a whole. They're pushing for a permanent injunction that would see Yuzu. It all sees everything. Yeah, Nintendo wants to go full scorched earth on this thing. And hell, they even want the Yuzu emu.
How? It's not surprising that Nintendo wants this. Nintendo always does things like this.
Domain name, they want that under Nintendo's control. Yeah, Nintendo's not messing around here. And it seems as though the Yuzu developers have not deemed this a legal battle worth taking on, as they've caved. And they're actually...
yeah, probably. Nintendo is a multi-billion-dollar company. Okay, let me explain lawsuits for anyone who does not understand why lawsuits are actually really bad and no one wants to fuck with it. First of all, if you're fighting two sides that have a lot of money, the lawsuits can drag on for years because there are so many ways to stall lawsuits. And it's boring, it costs money, it's annoying. And now, let's say you're someone who doesn't have a lot of money versus someone who does. The person with a lot of money can literally sue you for something that they know they will lose. And as long as it doesn't get thrown out and it goes to court, they are going to destroy the person that doesn't have to have money life, because they need to buy an attorney, because without an attorney they're probably going to lose a case where they clearly should win, and that attorney probably costs a lot of money. That's why they're called vampires and leeches. Imagine that, a thing that people call something has a purpose. And well, the other side that has a lot of money can just draw the court case out and make you pay a lot more in, fees and whatnot. And if you can't afford it, well, shit. That's why everyone tries to avoid lawsuits, because, man, lawsuits are not good. And they can be used to destroy people. That have been, in fact, the best examples of lawsuits being used to destroy people are whistleblowers in Fortune 500 companies, or places like BlackRock, Vanguard, Morgan Chase, and all of those places, because those places do a lot of things that should not be done. Banking, okay, and sometimes whistleblowers appear in these situations, and then those whistleblowers get sued by those places for the rest of their lives. Fraudulent lawsuit after fraudulent lawsuit, where they constantly win, but their lives are still destroyed because the lawsuits never stop, and their whole lives now revolve about dealing with these lawsuits. So yeah, it is what it is. Also, point of that story is there should be protections for whistleblowers that the USA does not have.
We're going to end up paying Nintendo $2.4 million in a settlement that both parties have agreed on. And the Yuzu emulator itself has been shut down. All operations on the part of the Yuzu team is going to end. It seemed as though the legal case that Nintendo presented was strong enough to spook the Yuzu team, or maybe they just didn't have the manpower and resources to fight this legally. Regardless, at the end of the day, the Yuzu team, as you can see here on Twitter, they've decided to shut it all down. All of their tweets are gone except this one statement that reads as follows. We write today to inform you that Yuzu and Yuzu's support of Citra are being discontinued effective immediately. For those who don't know, Yuzu is the Switch emulator and Citra is the 3DS emulator. The statement continues, Yuzu and its team have always been against piracy. We started the projects in good faith out of passion for Nintendo and its consoles and games, and we're not intending to cause harm. But we see now that because our projects can circumvent Nintendo's technological protection measures and allow users to play games outside of...
Yeah, that's just a tweet to garnish sympathy, honestly. I think that's pretty much it. Anyway, this was everyone's favorite communist.
Gaming news,
gaming
reviews,
news related discussions.
Stay tuned right here on YongYea. I'll see you guys next time.
Woo!
Yong
out.
out.
Yeah. Anyway, that was everyone's favorite communist boy wonder. Yeah. I mean, for some it's Hassan. For me, it's definitely our boy YongYea right here. Anyway, this was Citizen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.